welcome back to the Body for Minds podcast. Today I want to talk about a feeling that I hear very often in conversations with ambitious mothers, and if I'm honest, a feeling I also know very well myself. The feeling of being behind. Behind in your career, behind in your life, behind compared to other people, behind compared to where you thought you would be by now. And what makes this feeling particularly heavy is that from the outside, your life might actually look very full, very functional, very accomplished. But inside, it can feel very different. Like everyone else is moving forward and you're somehow stuck in place or constantly trying to catch up. So today I want to gently question this idea of being behind, because what if that feeling is based on a false assumption? And if you tuned in last week, you will notice that this episode continues last week's thoughts. But don't worry, you don't need to go back and listen to that episode first necessarily, unless you want to. Most of us grew up with a very specific idea of how life and growth are supposed to work. You move forward, you progress, you climb, you improve step by step, year by year. Like a straight-ish line going up. School, university, job, promotion, house, kids, next promotion, stability, success, and so on. It looks very linear on paper. But real life, especially life with children, is not linear. It's cyclical. It's seasonal. It's messy. It speeds up and slows down. It expands and contracts. Some years you build externally, some years you build internally. Some years you survive and some years you grow in ways no one can see. And the problem is this: we often compare our internal, messy, non-linear life to someone else's external highlight reel and then conclude that we are behind. But we are comparing completely different things. When we compare ourselves to others, we usually compare one specific area of our life, let's say career, maybe salary, fitness, house, travel, productivity, social life. But no one's life is just one category. Your life is not just your job. It's not just your body or your relationship, your parenting or your mental health. It is all of it at the same time. And the same is true for everyone else. But when we compare, we reduce complex lives to one metric. We compare our whole life to someone else's highlight in one category. And then we conclude we are behind. But that's not an accurate comparison. That's a distorted one. So I want to offer you a different question today. What if you were never behind? What if you were exactly where you needed to be? Not in a cheesy everything happens for a reason kind of way, but in a developmental way. Because if you think about it, can there be learning without failing? Can there be growth without learning? Would we even grow if everything always worked immediately and smoothly? Probably not. If everything always worked, we wouldn't need to adapt, we wouldn't need to reflect, we wouldn't need to change, we wouldn't need to grow. Growth almost always happens in the messy middle, in the uncertainty, in the parts that don't look impressive on paper, in the years that feel confusing, in the phases that feel like survival. And motherhood in particular is a huge catalyst for personal growth. But the tricky part is we often only see that growth much later. Because when you're in it, you're not reflecting. You are functioning, you are solving, you're holding things together, you're moving from one day to the next. And because you're in the middle of it all, it's easy to think that the summit is far away. If only you were at the summit already, it all would be easier. I was thinking about this the other day, and it reminded me of something very physical. Imagine you're running to catch a bus or a train. You sprint. Your muscles are working immediately, but your heart doesn't start hammering instantly. It takes a moment to catch up. Then suddenly your heart is beating fast in your chest to supply your muscles with enough oxygen and energy. And when you finally sit down on the bus, your heart is still beating fast, even though the effort is already over. Because the body always reacts with a little bit of delay. It needs time to catch up to what just happened. And I think personal growth works very similar. You go through hard phases, you adapt, you learn, you grow, you change, but you don't immediately feel wiser, stronger, calmer, more confident. Often your system is still in effort mode, still in survival mode, still running. So you don't yet see how far you've already come. Your system simply hasn't caught up yet. And this brings me to something I talk about quite often on this podcast. If we never pause, we never give ourselves the chance to catch up with our own life. If you're constantly moving, constantly solving, constantly planning, constantly functioning, you're always in the middle of the climb. You never reach a point where you turn around and see how far you've already come. And physically, it's exactly the same. If you train every day but never allow recovery, your body doesn't actually get stronger because the adaptation happens during recovery, not during the effort. Effort is the stimulus. Recovery is where the growth happens. And I think psychologically and emotionally, this is very similar. If we never slow down, we never integrate. We never see our progress. We never register what we have learned. We never notice how much more capable we have become. So we constantly feel like we are still at the beginning, still behind, still not there yet, even though we have already come incredibly far. Motherhood in particular can feel relentless in that regard. Because just when you think you've figured something out, there's a new development, a new phase, a new schedule, a new challenge, a new emotional stage, a new problem to solve. It can feel like a zero-sum game sometimes, like you're constantly pouring energy somewhere, but never really arriving anywhere. And many mothers tell me that sometimes life feels like they are just about surviving. And if you feel like that sometimes, there is nothing wrong with you. You are carrying a lot. You are adapting constantly. You are solving problems all day long. You are making decisions all day long. You are regulating not only yourself, but often other people too. That is not a small thing. That is enormous capacity. But when you're always in the middle, you don't see the growth. You only see the effort. So maybe life is not a straight line. Maybe it's more like mountains. You climb, it's hard. You're focused on the next step. You're out of breath. You're not looking around much. Then at some point you reach a ridge or a peak, and suddenly you can see the view. You see how far you've come. You see the path behind you. But you don't live on the peak. You stay there for a moment. You look around, you breathe, you appreciate the view. Not with the feeling that this is the summit and you are finally there, but with the knowledge that you are on the right path. You catch your breath, you take in the view, you gather strength. And then, inevitably, there will be another valley, another climb, another mountain. Not because you are behind, not because you failed, but because this is what growth actually looks like. Up, down, up again, rest, climb again, pause, continue, not linear, but still forward. So if you've been feeling behind lately, I want to leave you with this thought. Maybe you're not behind. Maybe you're in the middle. Maybe you are climbing. Maybe your system just hasn't caught up yet with how far you have already come. And maybe the most important thing you can do right now is not to run faster, not to push harder, not to compare more, but to pause sometimes, to breathe, to look back, to notice, to acknowledge, and to allow yourself to see that you are not at the beginning anymore. You are on the way. And that is a very different thing than being behind. And if this episode resonated with you, why not share it with another mom who feels like she's constantly behind? More you, less noise. Until next time.